everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Addicts podcast season 2, episode 12. We're on a little bit late today, but that's because we had to figure out our guest situation. For whatever reason, David Eller wasn't able to be with us today. So our friend Darren has stepped in and to be our guest today. Darren, we always start out just with my guests, just introducing themselves to everybody. So just introduce yourself to everybody, and then we will get going. We'll get rolling.
I'm Darren. I'm an admin on Facebook and Paranormal Creepy and Haunted. I don't know what else to say. I've never been on a podcast before, so this is a little awkward for me. Last minute notice,
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the best way to do it. Just jump in, like jump in the deep end of the icy water, So I always get started with just a couple of icebreaker questions. The first icebreaker question is actually a two-part question, and that is, what is your favorite location that you've investigated, and what is your bucket list location where you would like to go to?
I don't know that I have a favorite location I visited. Usually when I visit places, it's pretty bad. I don't go to the really public places. I'd like to get to Waverly Hills one of these days. I'm supposed to go this summer if my friend still is continuing. I have a friend up there in Kentucky that lives about an hour away from it. So I'm going to make it up there. Someday I want to make it to the Sally House and the Vasilla Murder House because I live right by both of those. I've just never made it over there.
Yeah, Waverly's only about 3 hours for me, so down here in Kentucky, So the second icebreaker question is, what is your favorite piece of equipment?
My favorite piece of equipment? Oh, gee, I don't know.
And you can't say yourself.
Probably EVP recorders if I have to pick one. I like the interaction you can get from them.
Yeah, well, you can't go wrong with an EVP recorder. I mean, yeah. So, all right. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, I know you, and we know each other pretty well. And you mentioned, when we talk about your favorite location, that you don't do the public places or whatever. That when you do an investigation, it's usually pretty bad. That's because I know that you most of the cases you do are malicious and even some demonic cases. So let's just talk about how you do your investigation. What's your investigation style?
My investigation style, usually I go in and I'm trying to get an EVP recording or something to make sure it's there and see what it's saying. And then I kind of just insist it leaves. That's really what I do. There's no real trick to it. I don't go in preaching or anything. I just go in and I put my foot down that they're not welcome in these people's houses and they need to go. They're frightening people and upsetting people and they need to go. I was on a really bad one here in York, Nebraska a while back that ended in there. I don't know what it is for sure. I don't think it was demonic, but when I got there, they had 5 paranormal teams come through there. Couldn't do anything. They'd have to leave the house for weeks at a time. They had 8 small children that were seeing horrific, like bloody figures and stuff, apparitions. And I went in there for a day. I investigated. I turned on Necrophonics app, and it cussed me out to the point I was like, you know what? We'll try this again when you're in a better mood. And I shut off the app. The lady with me from the house was like, did you just tell it off and hang up on it? I'm like, yeah, pretty much. And eventually, I just sat down and I'm like, look, dude, they're willing to let you chill here if you'll do it in peace. Can you do that? And it came back over and it was like peace. I'm like, all right, here's the other side of the coin. If you so much as startle one of the little kids again, I'm coming back and we're going to do things a little bit differently here. And since then, it's done small little stuff to make, just say, hey, I'm here. But it has not startled any of the children or messed with any of the children in any way. So that was just a strange one.
And I completely agree. We still do residential investigations, I mean, that, and most of my viewers know that. So yeah, and like you said, if it involves a kid, a child, that becomes a priority. That's like the first time we ever met. We met through a mutual friend. It's because you were looking for somebody down here towards me that would be able to help with a malicious possibly demonic.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah, that was a pretty bad spot there. She had some horrible assaults and stuff that she was documenting and recording, and yeah, she was in an emergency situation.
and that's the way it should be. All paranormal teams should be able to work together. We should be a community. Just like you came up to me, and I had no idea who you was when you sent me a message. You was like, I'm so told me to get in contact with you, and I was like, so I was like, okay, and then I was like, I, that's a little bit out of my that's a little bit out of my area I usually go to, but I was like, I know somebody that can help. So that's the way it should be. It should be a community.
Yeah, it's investigators. They get a little weirded out when I come to them because I'm like, yeah, we do a remote paranormal team off through Facebook. We work out of Facebook, and people are like, what? No, go away. It's like, no, we're serious. I wouldn't be here if there wasn't something going on. And we do on the team. We have voodoo experts, a shaman, Baptist minister that almost has a doctorate. He's working on it, and a few other powerful people, mediums and whatnot. We take that very seriously, as you know.
Yes, yeah. That's just like when I was at it. When you added me as an expert in the group. The first thing was they're like, what qualifies you? And I was like, I have, so yeah, it's, it has to be taken seriously. If you can't help somebody, you don't need to claim that you can, because that can make the situation worse. If somebody goes in and says, "Oh, I'm a demonologist," and they go in and they're not actually trained, it can make a situation worse. So you have to take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be very careful, especially doing it remotely, because you have to. Once you start seeing signs of the demonic, even powerfully gifted team that we have, it gets iffy and risky to even try and do it remotely. That's when we start reaching out for teams and looking for people in those situations. We also try to find teams that, there's a lot of teams. I don't want to offend anybody, so nobody answers there. They don't know what they're doing. They're just out there for like an adrenaline rush. They have no idea what they're actually doing, and they'll go in, they'll get everything rolled up, and then just leave the people high and dry. I've seen that happen over and over.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be in it for the right reason. And it's kind of like when Dan Riviera, when he was on the show, he also said, he made the point, you also always have to be learning. We don't know all the answers right now. We're in the field to find answers, but we're still learning. So you're always learning. So yeah, and and that's what it's about, is why you're in it. As we know, I'm in it. I've always said this from the beginning, 33 years ago. I want to leave the field better than it was when I got in it. I want to help people find answers, whatever that entails. And and as to me, my abilities and to be able to communicate with him and see, that's a gift from God. He gave me that gift to be able to help people, and I take that seriously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you should. That's another thing I come across a lot. It gets prevalent in the group sometimes, as Christians will come in there, and not saying anything bad about Christians. Some Christians come in there and be like, oh, if you're psychic or you're medium, oh, it's Satan and this and that. And that's always fun conversations I like to get into with those people, because I get so angry with them. And I'll point out, okay, so if somebody is born different, if they have Down syndrome, is that like from Satan too, because that's the way they were born and they're different? Or they usually don't have a whole lot to say.
Yeah, so I have two kind of funny stories for that. So as you know, and as most of my viewers know, first of all, I have two Bachelor of Science degrees from Louisville Bible College in theology, and so I take it seriously. So the Bible verse that most, not all Christians, some Christians are open about it, but some of the old school Christians, the verse that I try to use is out of Ephesians. In the King James version, the NIV version, all those versions, what it says is don't speak to the living dead because you don't know if they're good or evil.
Exactly.
But what the Greek, the original Greek transcript says, because that's one of the things I studied at Louisville Bible College, the actual Greek manuscript actually says it a little bit different. So the King James, NIV, all those, they leave out one very important phrase. The actual Greek translation, word for word Greek translation, says, "Do not speak to the living dead unless you're trained, because you don't know if they're good or evil." So the unless you're trained is an important piece that they took out to make it fit what they wanted to say. So
yeah, that sounds about right.
yeah, and then the other story that I got is along that line is well, from the group, we so living where I live, I tell people all the time, I'm not only from the Bible Belt, but I'm from the heart of the Bible Belt. Down here in Western Kentucky, we have a church on every block. So growing up a lot, I used to get a whole lot of that. Oh, you must worship the devil, blah blah blah, and so yeah, and I know my Bible. I can discuss Bible with anybody, and that's like you said. If somebody born with Down syndrome or they are the devil because they're born different, that's just like I was in Sunday school one time, and I was the assistant Sunday school teacher, and we had this one lady. She was all about gays and homosexuals going to hell. She was all about it. You couldn't convince her any different. Well, so for the people who don't know, my dad is gay, So and this lady didn't know it. My Sunday school teacher did know it, but she did. So when we got into this debate in the Sunday school class, my Sunday school teacher said, "We're going to let Kent take this field." So I looked at this lady because this lady was not the smallest lady in the world, if you know what I'm saying. She was big boned. So I looked at her and I said, "Okay." I was like, "So if you're saying that people who are gay, they say they're born that way, but you're saying that means they're going to hell. So that means since you're fat, you're going to hell too, because the Bible says obesity is a sin too. So so that kind of changed the tune.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that when the Bible says "do not judge," it's referring to judging whether or not people are going to heaven or hell. We're not entitled to do that.
Yeah, I don't want that job. I don't want to be a judge. That's not a job I want. So.
I don't want my job. I don't want to go any farther.
So Damien asked me a question. So as you know, Darren, I have the Chiari malformation and I've had the brain surgery and all that stuff. And Damien's asked me a few times how that's affected my abilities. So he asked, do you think I would still have my abilities if I didn't have the medical condition? That's a good question. I mean, I was born with Chiari, so I don't really know. It's always been part of me. But with that being said, my great grandmother, three greats, my great grandmother, 3 times removed, was a Cherokee medicine woman, and she had the abilities. So they think maybe that's how I got my abilities too. Route to heaven or hell, if existence, does that lay in the hands of us? Yep. Hi, Laura.
The shaman on our team, highly gifted before, but she got in a horrible car accident and got some brain trauma. It set her gifts into overdrive.
Yeah, that's what me and Damon's talked about a couple of times. If he asked me what I lost 3 years of pretty much everything recovering from the brain surgery. I had to learn to talk, walk, everything. So for 3 years I was able to investigate, obviously. So he's asked me, before if I'm more in tune now than I was before. And the answer is obviously yes, but I don't know I can't say it's completely because of the surgery or whatever, because it can also be, because I've learned to use it more. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, in 33 years of doing this, yes, so Damon says he believes we all have abilities. We just forgot how to use them. So yes, so I think it's pretty well. Almost everybody agrees that all the kids, all kids have the abilities. They can see. I tell people all the time, if your little kid says something about the invisible friend, and they can go into like details, like real deep details, you may want to question that. It's not necessarily an invisible friend. So yeah, uh, so yeah, uh, yeah. So I've always said the kid, and for some reason they lose the ability. I don't know. I don't know if it's because adults tell them that it's not real or whatever, or religion tells them it's not real. But I also think that I also think as an investigator, once you start investigating, you can redevelop that sentence. I think you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah,
What do you think about that?
you're using it more when you're investigating. You're using it more. You're getting more in tune with it. It's like a muscle. You're working it out. It's like going to the gym psychically.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So Laura says having near-death experience also enhances your brain to see and everything. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, because you get in touch with that sixth sense or whatever. The yeah, and near-death puts you on the same level as the spirit. So you see a little bit of that dimension. You know,
Yeah,
or
put you on the same frequency, so to speak. Yeah, frequency is the right word. But yeah,
yeah,
that's a near-death experience. Yeah, when you go into spirit form, you're going to come back with a little bit more spirit energy once you transfer over there.
right. Yeah. Frequency is a good term. Frequency is a good term because the theory is that they use electromagnetic frequencies to communicate. So frequencies is definitely a good term there. So let me ask you this question. Talking about talking about helping people. So obviously, the para pop culture, which is my term, uh, has 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 had good and bad effects on the field. So this is a question I pretty well ask all my guests. So para pop culture, that's my term. So the para pop culture is like the TV shows, the YouTube pages, all that stuff. So how do you feel that the para pop culture has affected the field both negatively and positively?
Positively, I mean, people are more aware of what's going on in a sense and what they can do about it, and that they have people to reach out to. Negatively, a lot of those shows I take with a grain of salt. A lot of them I don't like them. I don't like what they do, what they put out there. Going in and just screaming at stuff like a lot of them do, that's pretty much the dumbest thing you can do, not knowing what you're walking into. Because it's one of the really bad ones, you're gonna have some issues. And they like to do that a lot. And I was talking to a lady the other day that came to the team, and she's like, I think I know what to do because I watch this ghost show all the time. And I'm like, which one? And she told me, and I'm like, oh, honey, you don't know crap. I'm sorry, but if that's where you think you're learning from, you don't know anything. Nobody in the paranormal field takes that guy seriously. You don't know anything. You need help.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I agree. I agree exactly what you said. So So to me, the positive is it's made people more aware. It's opened up and made it okay to talk about more. And then the negative is some of the shows, and I'm not going to mention them because I'm not going to give them any more 5 minutes of fame than they've already had. Is you don't provoke spirits. That's the first rule. You don't provoke a spirit. But you also have to realize, and I mean we realize this. So I know I'm talking to the choir here, but most of these shows we have to remember. A lot of times what we see on TV, not me because I don't watch them, but what the people see on TV is uh, is what the producer wants us to see. So so let's take Ghost Hunters. I have no problem with Taps. I think they're a pretty good team, but you see a 40-minute TV show. They were on location for 3 days. You don't see them. You don't see the actual investigation. So we have to remember that. So yeah, I laughed at Damien here. So we're talking about Spice Girls, and like I said, I don't like mentioning the ones that are not serious, but like we have two that they recently bought a school and did with the admission price to investigate, and they had a little film last year. If everybody knows what I'm talking about, me and Damien's decided they're the Spice Girls of the paranormal field. They're not even a boy band; they're the Spice Girls. So yeah, so that was that inside joke. So yeah, you always have to show them respect. So yeah, so yeah.
The only time you should do a provocation is if you know what you're doing and you suspect it's demonic and hiding, but then you have to be very, very careful because there's a fine line between provocation and invitation. A very fine line.
Yeah, and like you said, you have to know what you're doing. Unless you're in this, Joe Public, who watched Ghost Hunters one time, or Ghost Adventures, or Ghost Brothers, or 28 Days Hunt, whatever. They definitely do not need to go trying to communicate with a demon. Anyway, whether it's
right.
So my issue with those places like that. Yes, not everything's a demon. So my issue with people like that is, and is they make it harder for the ones of us that are actually doing it right. So true story, we went to a place 2 years ago now. Good location, active, but I mean nothing bad, just active. But this team that we mentioned earlier, the Spice Girls of the paranormal field, they went in there and did a live there and was yelling, everything's a demon, because it gets some more likes. Well, because of them, you now have to sign a waiver that says that you won't show any of your video evidence until you show it to the location first. You can't do lives anymore. So when you start making my job harder, that's when you piss me off. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And just because you want a few more likes, you can't say everything's a demon. And so.
No, that's a highly a Christian thing, which I kind of in a sense get. They take it to extreme, but it's kind of erring on the side of caution in a sense from their belief standpoint, and not knowing what something is. To assume it's demonic is kind of erring on the side of caution, but they go to the real extremes with it sometimes.
Well, I mean, what people have to understand, and I'm keeping an eye on my time, guys, if you wonder why I keep looking down. What people have to understand is, I'm not dismissing demonic. I'm not. You know that, Darren. I don't dismiss demonic. I'm trained in demonology from Bishop Long in the Old Catholic Church. So, but the thing is, most of the time when you're dealing with a evil spirit, it's actually more a malicious spirit. And, when it comes to malicious spirit, if you were a dickhead in life, you're gonna be a dickhead when you were dead. So to be a true demonic spirit, that means they were never human. A demonic spirit was never human. So so that's what people have to understand. So we're talking about shows now. Okay, so exactly. Let's move away from talking about shows and let's talk about so here's something new I've been doing lately. Whenever I help a spirit cross over, and I think it's important for people to understand we don't cross the spirits over. The spirits cross over themselves. We may help them see the light. We may help them see the door. We may help them see the path. But the spirits can leave whenever they want. If they're still here, they're here for a reason. But anyway, so whenever I help a spirit cross over now, I put my EMF reader over the door. That way, whenever my REM pod and stuff, that way whenever they cross over the threshold, I know they've crossed. That way I have that visual evidence. Does that make sense? Do you think that's a good idea?
God, I think that's a great idea. I've never heard of anybody doing it, crossing over that way. I knew crossing over. A lot of times spirits are afraid. A lot of times spirits are afraid to move on, I've noticed, because they don't know. They've done bad things in life, and they're afraid of what's waiting over there.
Well, especially kids. So my theory is with a kid. A lot of times kids' spirits don't cross over because we don't teach kids to cross over. As adults, whether we were taught or not, we've seen TV shows, movies, or whatever. So the kids, they don't understand that. But what you said was a good point. We investigated this location. We were actually a friend of my team's, Ken Paranormal. A friend of our team's is the deputy sheriff here, and the chief deputy sheriff, and he asked us to go check out this location, and it was just a street. There was a wreck there. So two spirits were said to be there. What happened is there was a wreck, and these teenagers, boyfriend, girlfriend, they died, and both the spirits were still there. So we made contact with both of them. We made contact with the female first, and she told us that she was still there because she wanted to find her boyfriend and cross over together. So we finally got in contact with the boyfriend, and he told us straight out that he didn't cross over because he was going to hell. He knew where he was going, and he didn't want to go. So to tell his girlfriend that he appreciated her rating, but she needed to go on because he was going to hell. So yeah, that's definitely happens. So Damien says, where do you see yourselves in 5 years from now? What would you recommend to the new kids on the block?
Well, I have a comment on the rookie mistakes. I have a comment. 5 years from now, I didn't know I was going to be here 5 years ago. I don't know where I'm going to be 5 years from now. But early rookie mistakes is if something looks bad, there is no shame in calling up another investigator with more experience or a demonologist or a like, this is what's going on. Can I get some advice? Do you have some suggestions for me? Do you want to come and maybe look at this with me? There's no shame in that whatsoever. Don't ever think you know everything. You can handle everything.
So going back to the demon thing, Damien says that demons is too biblical terminology for him, but he does believe in spiritual heresy. So demonic, everybody perceives demonic as a biblical term, but actually it goes back to Egyptian and even Mayan culture. They use the term demon so demon is basically just a malicious, non-human spirit. That's the key. A demon, anything that to be considered a demon, whether it's Egyptian, Mayan, biblical, whatever culture, to be demonic, it was never human.
Yeah. And the original term, the word, what is demon? I can't remember the original term, but the term demon comes from, it wasn't a negative connotation.
Right.
It was just spirit.
Right.
The word demon, just, I know people that are so terrified of the word demon, they won't even say it. I'm like, that's just a word. Like, it's going to draw attention to them. No, it's not like you're out there calling their names like, here, boy. It's just a word.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So we're running out of time because I don't want to cut into the next episode. So I do want to thank Darren for joining us, especially on short notice. I appreciate it. So Darren is a good friend of mine, guys. Check out his groups. Okay, we'll tackle this question. You don't think it's a larger form of evil intent? So you want to take that one first, Darren, and then I'll.
A larger form of evil. I think the demonic has a plan. I think they're a lot more organized than they appear to us. I think they have a lot higher intellect than what we generally do as people. And I have seen a rise in demonic activity here, especially in the last like 6 months or so. And I do think they do have a form of evil intent. There's a plan there. They're not just doing random things.
So, do I think they're a larger form of evil? They're non-human, so that automatically makes them a higher form. So, but the thing everybody has to realize, a demonic entity cannot possess or you unless you give it permission. Now you can give it permission without doing it on purpose, but you have to open that. You have to open that passage. Yeah. So. Yeah, so disrespect is an issue. Uh, yeah, especially in Great England and over there. So yeah, uh, I don't. To me, whether it's short or long, it doesn't make any difference as long as the context is real. But I mean, from a skeptic, I can see that. So,
Yeah. There's always going to be people being disrespectful of paranormal, and this wasn't real and this was fake. And that was, even if it's real, there's always going to be people out there saying it's fake, it doesn't happen, this doesn't exist.
all right. So Damien said that he always gives permission. Yes, we know that, Damien. Any spirit can possess. Uh, so yes and no. Yeah, possession. So the term possession gets thrown around a lot, and it always has a negative impact. Just like the word haunted. I tend to not use the word haunted because everybody always assumes that it's negative. So I use the term active. So I will refer to a location as active. Same thing with possession. Everybody assumes possession is demonic, but like Laura said, any spirit can possess you if you give permission. That may be the only way they know how to communicate. So yeah, anything can actually possess you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the bad ones like to take a stronger hold when they do it.
Yeah, because they have more power, so they can.
Yeah.
It would need to know how much. Yes. So that's the key. Like Nancy said, the key to a spirit, a demonic entity, whatever, is the intent in which they're going to possess you. So, like myself as a clairvoyant, whatever term you want to use, I've allowed spirits to enter me, but only if I knew their intent was not bad. Okay, so no, you don't stumble into possessing someone. Like I said, you have to the spirit, whatever, good, bad, indifferent spirit, whatever. They have to have permission. You can give them permission without accidentally. For instance, if you're playing with a Ouija board, anything, and you don't know what you're doing, spirit box, anything. If you don't know what you're doing, you can open a portal and invite them in. If you don't close the portal and you don't know what you're doing, so you can do it without intentionally doing it, or unfortunately, and people who suffer from depression, PTSD, that kind of stuff, sometimes accidentally open up channels. So, and I say that as somebody who suffers from PTSD and depression. So yeah. But the bottom line is, they do have to have permission. And I could,
Yeah.
somehow.
Some things will just
So
trick you right into giving permission. I've heard of cases where they appear as like ghost children because people, oh, it's just a little child, come stay with me, you'll be all right, and then they're just screwed after that.
Yep. What people have to realize is if it's a demonic entity, they're going to take a form, at least to begin with, to earn your trust. So a lot of times they take the form of a little kid.
A lady I've been talking to, she's trying to get her help, but she's really spastic, but she has a lot of stuff going on. It's the one I showed you the pictures. That lady, she showed me one. She's like, that's my deceased husband. I'm like, honey, I don't think that's your husband. I don't. No.
So that's an interesting one there, Darren. So I'm sure you've had this before. I know I've had people call me. They'll be like, "I want to get it. I have the spirit, and I think it's my husband. Whatever, my mom, whatever. Can you help me communicate with him?" What I tell people in that circumstance, what you have to realize is you really don't want that spirit to be your mom, your husband. You want your mom, your husband, or whatever. You want them to have crossed over. If they're still here, they're here for unfinished business or because there's something keeping them there. But you really don't want them here. You want them to have crossed over. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you want them to go
So
to have some peace.
Yep.
Yeah, I had one of my best friends died a couple years back, and his girlfriend knew what I do with all this stuff. She came to me 2 days after my best friend died and asked if I could bring him back. And I was like, do you know what a messed up question that is to ask somebody? Because if he's not here, I wouldn't want to bring him back. Even if I could, I wouldn't want
to. So I'm going to end with this because it's almost time. But so Nancy said the kids and boards already scare her. We've already kind of addressed the kids. So let's talk a little bit about Ouija boards. We mentioned them a little bit. So to me, Ouija board, if used properly, it's just a tool. But it has to be used properly. Like our friend Damien here, he's actually a human Ouija board. He's actually got them on his arm. That's his thing. I have no problem with that if it's used right. To me, it's just like a pendulum or anything else. If it's used right, it's just another tool. What do you think, Darren?
Well, the thing about Ouija boards, the board itself, if you do research and understand the rules and how the board works, and that the board itself will start to warn you when crap's about to go crazy and you should cut it out. The planchette will start moving weird ways. It'll spell stuff backwards. That's when you need to just go, nope, done with this. But people seem to find it funny and keep going, and then they end up with issues because they don't do a little bit of research to know how to use one safely. But to me, they're kind of like cars. Some people have never been in a car wreck, and then, you get people that are in them all the time. So, because I've known people who have used Ouija boards 20, 30 years, never had something bad happen. People have used them once. Oh my God, there's a demon in my house. So it's just
right.
Luck of the draw sometimes, I think.
All right. So we were out of time this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Laura actually uses crystal balls, and she said the same thing with it. Yeah. So, anything's a tool if used right. So thank you for joining us, Damien. Thank you for joining us, Darren. Tell everybody, how to get a hold of you if they want to. Tell them how to get a hold in the group, all that stuff.
Yeah, Paranormal, Haunted, and Creepy Places on Facebook. Any one of the admins is on the team, and they can get a hold of me, and they all have their own specialties too, so they might be able to help you with whatever themselves. But yeah, if you need help and you don't have anywhere close to go, you can come and talk to us, and we'll help you find a place and people.
Yeah, if we can't help you, we will find you help. That's what we do. That's how I'm in there, because I'm a long way from everybody else. But I can help. I can. So it's a safe place if you want to come in and talk about your gifts or your experiences. Yeah, it's a good place. So Damien says, thank you both. Thank you, Damien. Next week I will have Rob and Marie Murphy from Elite Paranormal Society as my guest. So we will see everybody next week. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And hopefully my exit video actually works this time. Yeah.